It is Afterthoughts, Thursday evening.
Woo!
Yes, so good to have you with us.
Y'all got flannel shirts on.
That's right, because it's that kind of weather.
Finally.
It is. Don't forget to share this if you wouldn't mind. How about I turn my volume down on my phone? Share this. That's a good idea. Please do that. Share the video and spread the good stuff around. October 29th today?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a great conversation point, I think, because I can remember a year ago thinking about, oh man, Halloween's going to happen on a Saturday. This is going to be so much fun to do our trunk or treat and all that, and then boom, this year is not quite turning out. So, howdy everybody, as you're coming on for Afterthoughts. We're talking about just remember Halloween's favorite kind of times. And Andrew?
I have a good memory. It used to be a Halloween tradition that my dad would make calzones for Halloween. And
really?
It was so fun. And I love calzones. Calzones are, I don't know if they're better than pizza, but it's definitely on par.
Oh man, it's so good.
They're so good. And it's like double the crust. I mean, what's there not to like? And so he would make like dough, and then we could make our own, fill it with whatever we want, and then he'd bake it for us. And like we'd do that right before we went trick-or-treating. Because we always liked to go when it was dark,
That's a good memory.
not like when it was light.
Yeah.
So I can remember doing that a couple years in a row. That was really fun.
Mm.
I remember some, like when I was in elementary or middle school, and back then in your school they would have a little haunted house like in a science lab or something. Right. And they would have refrigerator boxes laying down, you had to crawl through them. And then you knew every year someone was going to grab your foot. You just knew it was going to happen. And so then you would wait and you didn't want to start crawling and people behind you would push you, and then sure enough someone would grab your foot. But that was fun. Or you just stick your hand in like spaghetti noodles and pretend it was brains. And
so we're reflecting a little bit just to get us started on Halloween kind of memories and also Point of Grace memories. We decided not to do and not to make plans. Had to decide this months ago not to do trunk or treat this year. And as it turned out, it was wise because we wish we were farther along through the COVID stuff, but little uptick. And 78660 zip code is a hot spot still in Travis County, and that's where we are. So not doing trunk or treat. I almost want to put a sign out front that says, "I'm sorry, neighborhood," because it was a cool feeling, wasn't it? When people are just coming in. Andrew, people would just, you would sit here and people would just walk in straight off the out of the neighborhood to come to trunk or treat. So.
Yes, our first year of having trunk or treat, the houses were still pretty new. And so we heard back from people, thank you for having this because we're new here, we just moved in, we don't know anybody, we don't know what neighborhoods to do. So we got our other new neighbors and said, let's try out that church thing down the street. And so they come every year. And so the first year you parked your cars out there and you went to each car. We had an RV parked out there, and they actually had what do you call a Dutch oven, like they were camping, this massive RV, and they served apple pie a la mode. Oh. It's an amazing trunk.
Right. Oh, man.
Awesome.
It's good to see everybody that's coming on.
Yeah, it is.
Great to see.
That's awesome.
I remember a trunk or treat memory for me is when the idea of just having some brats. And so we just kind of threw some on a grill that first day, and everybody loved them so much. The parents needed something salty amongst all that.
Yeah, I wasn't here that year. I was actually in Brazil.
That's right.
And
that's
so
right.
I saw a picture, though, of you in a Woody costume.
Yes.
I thought, oh, that's so cute.
I did my own costume that year.
You did. You went to, like, Walmart and got a
Actually, I ordered it on Amazon, the
Wow.
Woody, and nothing fit, but that's okay. So.
It was really good.
Oh.
Yeah, then, like, the next year after that, then, I don't remember, or 1 or 2 years after that, was the horrible rainstorm. And so all the
2018
trick-or-treating got shut down except Point of Grace. And so we moved it inside at the last second. And then social media was still sort of new, I guess. But people were telling each other, hey, that church, Point of Grace.
Right.
Point of Grace is still having it, and so I don't remember the numbers. 400 or 500 people actually came through in the lobby.
In the lobby,
and it was a great
the
time.
booths, we just, it was
Good
crazy.
time.
God,
Next
talk
year,
about,
hopefully, we'll do it again.
talk about an example of God making lemonade out of lemons. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a tough night, and nobody could go. And it was great. It was great. So, yes.
And it was a year ago, like this week, that you guys extended the call to me
Wow.
to come down here.
Woo-hoo, almost a
Great
whole year,
memories.
yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
that was fun.
There's some cool memories showing up online, too. That's good. Excellent.
Yeah, like I don't remember in Texas ever having to wear a coat over your Halloween costume, but I bet were you.
I bet your
before
wife
this?
did. Or,
My wife,
Lots of coats
Rachel.
over your costumes.
I think so. I know last year we got like a big snow. It was like 8 inches,
Oh my gosh.
and we were snowmobiling and not trick or treating. Actually, I was with
different.
Rachel's family. They have a big hill in their backyard, so we
man.
sled down it and then we'd snowmobile up the hill and sled back down.
Wow. What is your favorite Halloween candy? Like when you would look
Oh,
in
you
your
know.
phone case or your bag, what
You know,
were you hoping
always
was
a
in
good one was $100 grand.
there? 100
Oh, wow.
grand?
Because is that what it's called? 100
Candy
grand?
bar?
The little-
100,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
100 grand,
You know, it was like
100,000
the rice cup, crispy rice with the caramel
Right,
inside.
right.
I love that because it's one of those ones I never got in any other time of
Any
year,
time, yeah.
and I love caramel. So
What's your favorite?
Man, I'm just a sucker for Snickers and Reese's all the time. Snickers and Reese's, just keep them coming. And they're always so small that you can just bite size. One after another kind of thing.
Shall we share our argument
What's yours?
yesterday? Oh, Reese's or Snickers or.
M&M's. You're a big M&M.
And I like candy corn too, but not generic. I like the
the brand. What is that brand?
Is that a
Brock's,
Brock's?
I think.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so when you eat candy corn, do you eat it color by color or all at once?
No, I put them on my canine teeth and make myself a little vampire. That's what I
I eat
do.
it by the handful.
Yes.
Or the pumpkins. They upgraded to the
Pumpkins are good.
candy corn's pumpkins or whatever they're called.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So yesterday, Andrew and I had our first sort of disagreement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our first. It wasn't.
It wasn't a fight.
No, we were talking about.
It was
is a Snickers bar.
office mate
It was just a discussion.
war.
It was a discussion.
Yeah, was a Milky Way the same as a Snickers? And I said, no, it's not at all. But then you said,
Well, it's not. You're right. It is technically not the same, but it's basically a Milky Way with peanuts added.
Yes.
That's all it is. It's the
and
same,
then I said, but Snickers doesn't have caramel.
but it does.
Okay, so that's
I think it does.
Yesterday. So I gave
Someone
you all
at
my
home-
Milky Ways and you gave me
Oh.
your Snickers.
I don't
Kit
think
Kat.
I gave you any.
Favorites. Oh, we're getting favorites on
Twix, Kit Kat.
Reese's. Yes.
I
Marty?
don't like Starburst and I don't like,
No.
I just like the chocolate. Do you like Starburst?
I love Starburst and Nerds. You know what they came out? Tells you how far along they're coming in candy technology, but they are doing bags of Nerds rope bits, and that's like take me to a whole nother level on the
What?
candy train. That's awesome.
I don't know what that is. You'll have to show me what that is.
On the candy train.
I don't know what sort of metaphor that is, but
Baby Ruth. It's been a long
Oh,
time
Baby Ruth.
since I've had a
Almond
Baby
Joy.
Ruth.
And
Keep
you know
coming.
what else I haven't had in a long time is Three Musketeers. It's
Almond
like some
Joy.
kind of fluffy
Somebody,
cloud.
hey, you're Almond Joy. Somebody's got to partner with you.
Almond Joy is
Almond
good.
Joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Good and Plenty.
'Cause
Anybody like
sometimes
those?
you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
Good and who?
Good and Plenty?
Bit of honey?
No. Yeah, you like that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's always at the bottom of the bag.
Oh my gosh, Raisinets. Remember that? That's like,
Oh, that's just mean. That's just wrong.
oh, you always got that one house that was giving out raisins. No offense to anybody
Wow.
online that might be doing that.
Who
Okay.
would do that?
Well, actually, Afterthoughts is about
It's supposed to be about.
We always make
what
it
kind
about
of thoughts is God working in our hearts and minds after the whatever He spoke to us on Sunday. So, and we're in this series called
Jesus.
Can I Thrive in My Anxious World? And just try not to. I mean, we learned pretty quick we're not going to be the be-all, end-all of talking about anxiety, but we can say some things that Jesus, that God through His Word talks about anxiety. So this has been very helpful, very, very productive. And our key verse, let me just read this or baseline verse. Y'all can comment, and then we'll go to the specific verse that we dealt with on Sunday. But come to me, Jesus says, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Any new insights from this week's journey? Just is that still a good thematic verse? I mean, even if nothing else, if we just learn that verse this whole series, that would be awesome.
What's hitting me right now as I look at this verse is, he says, "Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me." It's like,
yeah, it's not magic, right? You got to learn some things,
and it's like learn how Jesus is handling stuff in his world.
Right.
How is he doing it? I don't know why that's hitting me right now, but it is that "and learn from me" part is very.
And learn from me.
Because it's his yoke. He's carrying. He's carrying loads of life too, I guess.
Right. Well, he just has this way. I think critical to this, we've been talking about it all the time, is the fact that he has this incredible relationship as a human being with his Father in heaven. And that's, I think, the foundational thing that he's trying to say. You can do this too. It's not just me. You get to do this too. You get to have this relationship with God in heaven. And I'm showing you how this works. And it totally changes the way you do life on earth. And it's
you know
cool.
What's interesting that I probably thought about it, but again, it's hitting me now. Of like, Jesus had loads of life too. He had stuff that's kind of crazy to think about.
It is. Well, so for instance, when you say that, it reminds me of a section where he had the load of choosing these 12 guys.
Yeah.
He had the load. He said, okay, I've got to choose out of these guys that are following me. I got to choose 12 of them. I got to choose my disciples, right? And he already had them. He had already said, come follow me, but he hadn't anointed them as the 12 yet.
Yeah.
And so what does he do? He goes and he spends all night praying it with his Father. He's got a load. He's got a decision to make. He really doesn't want to get this wrong, right?
Yeah. And I could just, maybe I don't, but like Peter, Peter's notorious for just saying weird things.
Yeah.
And I could just see Jesus being like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Father, are you sure, Peter? Peter, what's...
I thought that
Peter.
I knew what I was doing, but did I do the right thing here?
Yeah. I'm thinking Peter, but then I think, no, maybe not Peter, he's taught. What is he doing all night praying to God about?
Yeah.
And then he chose his disciples. Just this in-tuneness. But I think if he was just living in his divinity then, he wouldn't have needed to do that. But I think he's living fully in his humanity, and he's saying, there's a relationship with the Father that one can have as a human being, and it just radically changes. But he still had to go through the decision-making, right? You bear the responsibility. But that's great. So we just started this conversation in a way that we didn't even predict it would start, right? But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
When you just said he still had to do it,
Right.
It reminds me of whether or not you think of the yoke with the oxen that are plowing the field, or you talked about whether it's a yoke that's made for you to carry water. You still have to carry the water, and you still have to plow the field. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't say, I put the yoke on the oxen and they don't have to work anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes we go to Jesus and expect him to take away the labor or the thing that's hard. And he's like, no, you still have to work, you still have to labor, you're still going to have all kinds of problems. I will be with you.
And I have a way. And yes, exactly right.
Yeah. But I think we get upset when he doesn't take away the labor or the thing.
Yeah,
we've kind of talked about this.
So that was one of this whole, what you're saying, was a big jump for me, or learning or uncovering, was that, like, peace thriving in my anxious world doesn't mean that I don't have to do anything anymore, which is what I think of when I think of, I even said, or
Jesus fulfilled his promises. That means me a spectator.
Yeah.
Everything's going to work out fine.
right, okay, like God, give me peace means I get to stay home in my pajamas and have hot cocoa and watch TV, and my back never hurts as I lay on the couch for 48 hours. But like, that's not.
I think there's an underlying thing too.
That's not thrive in his book.
Yeah, it's not thriving.
No, that's not
It's not thrive in real life either, or any life. Sorry.
Oh no. I think that Jesus, can you help, the theme of the whole time, or the whole series. I think you have to wrestle with, do I believe Jesus can actually help me? Because if I don't come to terms with that decision, none of this other thing is going to happen if I don't really believe, well, Jesus, you'll help other people but not me. Or, well, Jesus, I'm going to have to help you with this one. So I think there's a whole base foundational thing I have to decide. Do I believe Jesus can help me thrive, not get by, not just survive?
Yeah.
Because if I really don't think he can help me, this isn't going to help,
You actually are introducing how we're gonna wrap this series up this Sunday and kind of return back to that issue. But you're right. You are very right. And it's almost like I need to reaffirm that every day, that Jesus, I believe you.
Yeah.
Because I wind up, I wake up a heathen most mornings, so I need to return to that.
I think, yeah, that's a big step of faith. That's a big getting in the wheelbarrow moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Of yeah, I could pray, God help me, but okay, do you have like an actual way that helps me live this real life that I have with lots of big things and little things and mundane things and stuff?
It's good.
Yeah, and there's a belief system out there too of God is this big, big thing and we're just little ants. And he really isn't involved in our everyday things. So you have to struggle with that belief too. Is that what I think? Or does he really care about every little thing?
Yeah, it's like, does God only care? This is just what's coming into my mind, and it might not be the best illustration, but like, does God only care about the monks on the mountain praying, chanting, whatever?
Wow.
Or does he also care about the farmer and the banker in the way that they do their life too?
It says that he cares for all.
Well, and that's it. And when we think about carrying the load like Jesus carried, how would Jesus live my life if he were me?
That's a great question to ask.
How would Jesus live my life if he were me? It's not like how I suddenly become Jesus. No, that's not going to happen because I'm not going to go back 2,000 years and live in. But if Jesus were living my life, how would he live it? And that's kind of, whoa, as a human being, that's kind of a helpful way. We're going to zero down to the particular, we kind of bounced around. We started with Jesus, learning about the yoke and coming to him and what the yoke is, the way of getting. And by the way, there's a great conversation happening online. If you don't have your chat on, and you have the capacity, I'm looking at Facebook, so you can, capacity to chat. So please keep that up because this conversation is one of the beauties of this. So then we went to Paul, and Andrew preached on what the Apostle Paul said about help us get an idea of what some parts of the yoke and how do we follow Jesus there. And now Peter. So 1 Peter chapter 5, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. So, Peter, how does he help us?
Well, so I was thinking the whole thing about God's word is always living and active, and it's always the same, yet you always notice something different. And so I've been married to you a lot of years, and you've been a pastor a lot of those years. And so I've heard a lot of sermons, and I've probably heard this verse more than once.
And you've been very gracious about that,
no,
by
well,
the way.
it's Jesus talking through you. So I saw something new. Humble yourselves under God's mighty hand that he may lift you up in due time. And I think it depends what lens you have on when you read a verse, whether you see condemnation and law or if you see grace and mercy.
Oh, that's cool.
So
What lens you have
if
on.
I walk around afraid of God, that he's out to get me, or he's an ogre, or he's not a kind father who loves me very much, I have stopped on that verse and had fear about, I better humble myself under God's mighty hand, like he's going to squish me, or like he's upset with me, or he's going to discipline me, or condemn me, or something. But if I look at it that he's a kind heavenly father, so that he will lift me up. So when I come to him, all you who are weary, I will give you rest. It's like that kind, big, fatherly hand isn't coming to spank me or hurt me. I'm not needing to flinch. He's picking me up and carrying me. So I saw that in a totally different way of how beautiful the verse is. It's not a squashing verse.
But you've nailed the step of faith, the getting in the wheelbarrow, right, of that verse is that, can I humble myself? Because typically our human nature, to humble myself under a mighty hand, I want to be on top of that mighty hand, I don't, so.
Well, it's going to be easier.
So that's a step of faith.
It's going to be easier to do the second half of that verse if I see him as coming under and holding me.
Right.
Then I can cast my care on him because he cares for me.
Because he's going to lift you up.
And if I don't think he cares for me, that thing isn't working.
Throughout this whole series, we've been taking these two things. How is God trying to change my thinking? And then how is he changing my doing? But because if we try to change the way we do things, the way we handle anxiety, without our thinking changed, it ain't going to last. And then we're not going to get the effect either, right? I mean, the result. So that's a huge, huge thought change.
Can I say another one?
Yes.
Yeah, we're kind of...
One of you guys, I'm not sure who, because you both preached recently, cast all your anxiety on him. Maybe Sunday you said, okay, cast your anxiety. Where are you casting it? Are you just trying to get rid of it? And you're saying, no, you're actually putting it on top of something, or you're giving it. And then I think you, or someone said it was like Palm Sunday when they took their coats and palm branches and put it on the donkey that Jesus was riding.
That was the same verb.
Is that right?
The same verb for
so that was
cast,
a
right.
cool thing. As I cast my anxiety, it's actually going on to Jesus. It's not just like, put it in the back of your mind, or stop thinking about it, or stop worrying. It's like you're actually taking it and putting it.
How does that change things? You guys, how does that, is there something about...
I think that it is, so a word in this is like benevolent detachment that was in this.
Separating yourself.
Right, and I think
tenderly.
I think that casting it on Jesus, on God, it's like you can still be benevolent, but you can still be benevolent towards it. It can still carry weight for you. It can still be an important thing, even if you're not holding it. You can. It makes me think of like a detachment in maybe like a Buddhist sense or whatever, of like, whatever happened, it just is going to pass and it doesn't matter. And it's like doesn't matter. The
really
apathetic. But like that's really hard to do with like I'm just thinking of like family, like detaching from your family is like really hard. That's hard, and especially if you have anxiety, anxiousness going on there, detaching from them is just a difficult thing. And
Well, I wasn't here for your last afterthoughts, but you did the plates. And so I think of that as there's a couple plates I'm balancing or
So this
whatever.
is, for somebody that doesn't know that, this is like
you talked about
spinning
all the plates that we are spinning in our life.
going around and spinning.
And we're
Yeah.
like running around trying to keep them spinning. And
Right.
God's like, why don't you just let me help you with that? And then we'll put them in this backpack and keep them safe or whatever. But one of them I was thinking of is the ones that are hard to detach from would be, I imagine that one being a china plate that's very special, and he wraps it in bubble wrap to keep it extra safe. And I say, Jesus, please take care of this thing. This is really special. And then I don't know, but just a minute ago when you were talking, I imagined the few times we've had a child go into surgery, and that moment where they take your child away on the gurney, and you have to let them go.
Right.
And you're still right there, but you have to trust and let them go.
So there's a prayer in here, in the notes that you said of, Jesus, I give this dream to you, this blank to you, but please take care of it. It's very special to me. And I think when we were talking about this, that has been something specific that is very, it was cool. It was a cool prayer. It's a cool way of thinking about my prayers to God. It was helpful to say, I just remember thinking back when I was younger about, like, I had this dream or I had this thing that I really wanted, and God wasn't giving it to me like right when I wanted it to be, and I was worried about stuff that was happening. And then I remember hearing some stuff in the world and being like, do I have to give this dream up? Do I have to not care about it anymore?
Right.
Do I have to like move on? But I can't. I don't know if I can, because it's just something that matters to me.
And you hear something like, surrender it all to God. And
And then it's like, well, but I still care about it.
Yeah. And so I like that prayer. I think it's okay. Cast all your anxiety on him, but please take care of this, because this is very important to me. There's some anxiety I have. I don't want any attachment. I just really need to let it go.
And I think that please take care of it, God. Please take care of it. Yeah. That's a powerful thing, because it acknowledges, it comes from that God is a Father in heaven that cares about you.
Yeah, it paints him as a kind. He is going to help take care of it, and he knows it was special to you because he knows you.
I think that part as a tool, that line was put in here as a tool for dealing with this. But I think for the things because so many times unaccomplished dreams, expectations, hopes, not just that I could accomplish and I failed, sometimes failures in it, but it's more or less, it just didn't work out that way. What do you do with that without betraying your heart? And so that helps Jesus. I can't handle the load. I'm not supposed to handle the load of unfulfilled expectation or dreams. But I have to value the importance. And so I surrender this to you, but please take care of it. It's very special to me. And then I put it in your hands, and this goes back to your sermon, that bottom line, no matter what he does with that plate, that issue is going to be good.
And I just remember being, like towards the end of college, all my friends are getting married. Everybody's getting married, and everybody's got someone, and it was like 5 years after I graduated college before I met Rachel. And I remember like talking to people and being like, okay, but like, what if I never get married? Because I always really wanted to like get married. And there's that passage in Romans where I think it's in Romans, where Paul's like, it's good to be single. I'm like, no, it's not, Paul. You're wrong. But then, so I'm reading this as like a single guy and being like, well, is God going to make me single for the rest of my life? I don't really want that. That sounds terrible. Right. And I remember telling a friend that, and they're like, no, God's going to give you a wife. I was like, but it doesn't say that. It's not necessarily. And so I love this prayer now that I'm thinking about it, because it's this middle ground of, or maybe not even middle ground, a third way.
It's real though.
God, you're right. God maybe doesn't always answer my prayers the way I want him to. It acknowledges that, but it also acknowledges that he does care about me, and he does care about this thing that I care about.
Well, see,
he doesn't hate me. That's the other thing.
And we can have, our desires are very important to him. Now, our desires can be tainted by our sinfulness, and they go as sinful desires. Mm-hmm. But let's not take all our desires and put it in that category. many of our desires are very whole and wholesome, maybe tainted by our own sinfulness.
Yeah.
So we have to somehow get that, put value on that, because he's the guy that gave you that desire.
Mm-hmm.
But man, putting it, the timing of it, and how it's fulfilled, and how he's going to fulfill that in a broken, sinful world, it's just too big. He's got to handle that.
I just thought of this too, that when it said the whole thing about thriving and not just surviving. So until that dream may or may not happen, how can I still thrive even while I'm waiting on what I hope will happen? So by giving it to him and wrap this up and keep this really special, but in the meantime, I will still thrive, because sometimes if I'm just so insistent on waiting on that unfinished thing, I won't be thriving until that thing happens. And you could waste a lot of years then not thriving because of...
For me, I remember when I was working through this passage right here, there came this point where I hadn't seen it that way before. There's a difference when I give something, when I try to surrender, cast my anxiety, right? If I might still have some responsibility. But that's usually this little step and the result. So that kind of goes in with another statement that we made. I must own my responsibility, but God will own the results. Many times my anxiety comes from I'm trying to own the result. It's just too big a weight to carry. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's no responsibility right now. But that was helpful for me to separate, I can fulfill my responsibility without the anxiety. I can separate those two. So when I take something out and say I cast the anxiety away, I still hold on to the responsibility. What my next step, the next right thing I'm supposed to do, something like that. Mm-hmm. That was helpful for me because otherwise it feels like, well, I give this to you, God, and I don't have anything to do. I'll sit and see what you do, No, I've got a role to play. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, I've discovered, especially with adult children now, many times my role is pray. And be available on the phone when anybody calls.
Well, and just the way you just said that played out so beautifully. Like, if this was my anxiety and you're God, here, God, let's see what you do with this. Or, here, God, but I really don't think you can do this. Or, here, God, I trust you love me so much. Even the way I cast right. is going to dictate if I thrive or not after I've tried to. That's not letting go of it. That's, anyway. Can we get to the Rick Steves suitcase?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the parable of Rick Steves.
The suitcase.
I love Rick Steves.
I love
So you guys help
Rick
us.
Steves,
Yes.
Right. Very
if
good.
Rick Steves watches,
so quickly tell people what the Rick Steves,
The parable of the Rick Steves suitcase is we went to. Oh, this sounds so. We went to Europe. No, we went to Italy and Germany, and we happened to watch PBS, the Rick Steves PBS show, and he's traveled so much, and so he's trying to teach you how to prepare to go overseas. And he's telling you, you only need one bag and maybe a backpack, and you pack everything for your trip in that. You don't want to be lugging around huge things. You aren't going to be able to get them on the train. The planes over there have smaller requirements for your carry-on luggage, so you better make sure the one you're taking will fit ahead of time. So anyway, we watched it. I had you watch it. And you can even buy Rick Steve luggage. And it's got all these compartments, and it's the right specs. So, but first of all, you have to decide, who the heck is Rick Steves? Do I even trust this guy? Or, that's hogwash. What does he know?
Am I going to humble myself?
Am I going to humble myself that this guy might actually know what he's talking about? Or do I always have this know-it-all attitude that I know everything? I've never been traveling to Italy. Maybe I should listen to someone who does it for a living.
And you're much more willing to do this than I am.
Yeah, so I love all of these comparisons to God. And one of my favorite things about the Rick Steves show was, there's people going where you're going. There's people that live where you're going. So let's say that you get a sinus headache. They do get sinus headaches there. Or let's say you need some hairspray. They have hair, and they use hairspray.
Yeah.
So you can go to the store and get something you've forgotten. Because I think we worry, I might need this, I might need that. What if this happens? I might need an umbrella. And he goes, but you might not. And if it rains, you could buy an umbrella there and just leave it there.
Right.
So it was just telling you this whole thing, don't worry about tomorrow. I will provide on that day. So it was kind of that
I
comparison.
love that provision
also.
along the way,
Yeah.
as
And it
opposed to,
was so
I got to
much
take everything with
more-
me.
It was so much more carefree then to travel lightly than
right.
burdened.
Gosh, the
And-
analogies are great.
Yes, and I didn't really need 8 pairs of shoes, that you're lugging around. And if a shoe broke, you could buy a shoe there. It was Italy. Hello, we could have bought Italian shoes.
Do you know people responded during that on the online to that message saying, Dawn, are you serious? You actually, because I had the suitcase up here,
Well,
did
and
you
we
actually
did-
do 2 weeks with that suitcase?
Yes, and you
Yes.
also got a backpack.
But still, it
yes.
was,
I remember. So I went to Europe last summer,
Oh, Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, and
Copenhagen.
I like watched like 100 hours of Rick Steves.
Really?
I love this. I just still watch it. It's so fun. And I remember like just packing and small, and it's hard.
It was hard.
It's really hard to trust that it's gonna be okay if I have. But then what's fun is like doing it Okay, so you got in as small as you can go,
right.
and you go on the trip, and then you use like a third of what you actually packed.
Still.
I remember it was like didn't wear these pants, I didn't wear this shirt, I didn't wear this. I wore, you're traveling, and or at least I was just yeah.
Now, I will say you do get sick of wearing the same things, or you can, but I will say that theologically, maybe I was thinking today about this, that once we were there, I did sometimes regret, oh man, I wish I had that other pair of shoes that I didn't bring, or I did kind of have a little moments of regret.
Yeah.
So I think we do that too with God. When you trust Him and then do what you think He's asking, you can still be doubting your choice. Oh
Right.
man,
Right.
should I have gone to that college? Or what about that house? Am I sure? So there's still sometimes second guessing.
There is. And that's a time we got to return to that. Okay, I have a Father in heaven who loves me very much. He's going to get me through this. And if that's something real special to me, well, it's in His hands, and He knows.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but
I was thinking as I was listening to you talk about the Rick Steves parable, it caught me of I might not like how if God's the packer, if God's going to pack my suitcase of life and give me the loads of life to carry or whatever, I might not like what He packs for me because I might look at the suitcase and be like, okay, but where's all my stuff? I think maybe that's similar with God of like, if you go back to that spinning plates analogy of, okay, God, I trust you with all my spinning plates. Help me order my life. And, I'm going to humble myself under your mighty hand so that you can lift me up. And then it happens. And then what about that plate? And what about that plate? And what about this plate? And what about this plate?
Yeah.
I really liked, what happened to those?
Or sometimes then my kids would try to put their junk in my suitcase. I'm like, no.
yeah, that's right.
No, you're not sticking your anxiety in my suitcase.
Yeah.
And I think people do that where I will try to grab on their anxiety, and so then the next part of this whole thing is that's not my circus, not my monkey. So that is not my shoes.
Right.
You figure out how to pack them or don't bring them. And knowing when something isn't even mine to be anxious about, but it's so easy to let someone else's anxiety be
Right.
like Velcro. Like I have like Velcro on and it's sticking on me. I'm like, I call it a Velcro prayer. Like, that is not my stuff. Help me rip this off and cast
Right.
it off because it's not. Or I'm only going to give it an hour, a minute, an hour, whatever. I'm not going to give it days.
Right.
And
The
empathy
anxiety. And that's why
cry a
sometimes
little
it's
bit.
just somebody else's anxiety we need
Yeah.
to cast off, right?
Which I can help them. I can be with them and cry alongside, but then there's got to be a time where it's
I think
not
that
my
was
suitcase anymore.
Yeah.
your prayer or the prayer in here that I'm responsible to you but not for you. So I
That's
can
helpful.
help. I can help you. I can do, but like it's not always my job to do everything for you.
I have a role to play in your life,
Yeah.
but I can't own your stuff. You got to own your stuff. And whoa, that's
frees us to be helpful
Isn't that
and to be
helpful?
loving. Frees
Yes.
us to be loving and helpful without being trapped under.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I remember
Yeah.
a great line. It was a John Ortberg book. That doesn't matter, but he says, "You cannot truly serve someone unless you are free of them." If you're tangled up in their stuff and kind of enmeshed, then you can't serve them. You're trying to survive, And so I think sometimes,
I remember taking a class about counseling in college. You had to do for the Director of Christian Education training. You had to get some like low-level intro to counseling basics of thing, and just she over and over the professor was like, you have to take care of yourself. You have to be able to take care of yourself if you're going to take care of other people.
Yeah.
And there was an image of a story about, they call it the starving baker, who baked so much for everybody else and then starved himself because he forgot to feed himself. And that always stuck with me of don't forget to feed yourself. Don't forget to take time for yourself. Because if you're starving, you can't bake bread for other people.
Yeah.
I think part of that too is when we're vulnerable and we're anxious, it's like we absorb more. We become, and that's why the last part about why Peter says, "Oh, by the way, when you're struggling with anxiety, be sober, be vigilant. The devil's around like a roaring lion." There's a spiritual aspect. I think you've been trying to jump in here.
No, I was thinking also, sometimes you might need to consult with another person who's good at packing, or consult with someone about stuff you're anxious about and that you trust, and that believes the same thing we're talking about, and they can help you say, "I'm not sure that's really yours."
Well, that's where the unpacking in Ashley. Take a look. What am I carrying? Take a look at this. Is this still? Someone commented after the message on Sunday and says, "Yeah, that whole idea." I think I held up one shoe and said, "This is a 15-year-old failure that's been forgiven. Why am I carrying this thing around?" Sometimes we say, "Do I still have to carry it?" Jesus says, "The Son set you free. You will be free indeed."
I love that. You might be carrying a suitcase full of old stuff you never got rid of that you keep
But you never
lugging
looked.
around.
Unpack your soul.
Yeah.
Unpack your soul.
I know that,
Take a look.
Yeah.
A while ago, I was talking with Rachel about how I was feeling, and I was like, I feel really anxious. I don't know what's going on. She just kept asking me little questions, and I was like, so eventually, I'm anxious about this. And just even knowing that I've been carrying this, and I didn't know I was carrying this, and now, even just, I didn't have to change anything other than, now I know. Now, okay, bye.
Yeah.
That's silly.
That's kind of cool that Peter's saying, cast all your anxiety. Take a look. What's going on? Unpack that. So unpacking your soul. Taking a look. And then I can leave the anxiety out and take the responsibility and say, what's my role? What do I need to do? Where am I going? And we won't do this perfectly, but oh man, that feels lighter already. It does feel lighter.
You didn't get very far into it. My anxious world is the devil's playground. But as we're talking, I'm thinking the longer that you stew, or the longer that you wring your hands with this particular plate or this thing that you're anxious about, the more time that gives the enemy to start helping you be anxious, or throwing in other reasons to be anxious. So maybe there's something about the quicker I do go to God with it, maybe that will shut him down quicker.
Yes.
And the longer I refuse to go to God and try to give him a plate, so to speak, or an anxiety, that just gives the devil more time to come give more reasons for me to be anxious about this thing.
I think so. And I love what you said about you might need some help packing, and unpacking. I mean, what's a counselor but helps you unpack what's going on and take a look, and now what you say. And that's, I believe, the gospel has so much great news for us when we kind of take a look and say, this is so much healing and wholeness that can happen when we take a look. And so that's excellent. It's good.
Well, maybe I don't want you looking at my suitcase and helping me, because you might tell me I can't take that thing. So then I'll just avoid asking for your help.
Yeah.
I think that's the humbleness under God's hand, so he can lift you up.
Well, you know what? I just feel it right now. when I experienced that about this like dream I had of how I thought my life was going to go, and I wound up sitting there in that closet and saying this prayer, I remember the fear of, but what if I don't get that?
What if I don't get to take that on the trip?
What if I don't get that?
Yeah.
And that's where it goes back to I have a Father in heaven who loves me very much. That's why I think I need to get into this every day. I've got to start here and
I think
reset myself in this Father that loves me.
That was what was helpful for me about the Ebenezer's thinking about how God's worked in my past,
Yeah,
so that to help me in the future, Thanksgiving and stuff. Just because it might, maybe a lot of times things don't work out the way I hope them to exactly. Maybe eventually it gets around, God works something. But He hasn't let me down yet. Even though it hasn't worked out maybe the way I hoped or the way I wanted to, and there might have been loss along the way, and it might have been difficult, He has worked it out.
And it's amazing how much He does work out for good in a really broken, sinful world.
Yeah.
We really don't give Him much to work with, you know?
And like the whole last year, this year, planning the wedding with Rachel and like everything that was going on, and can't do this and can't do that and don't do this.
Think about
and
what's
have
happening
this
in your
and
life in a year.
It's like, man, okay. Yeah, from like this
From
week,
this point,
getting a call, getting engaged, announcing the thing, going, moving,
COVID.
Yeah, if I had planned it, it would have gone differently, but it worked out pretty good.
So you guys started this whole series with that talk to the counselor,
Yeah.
Lottie, and he gave you that scale of 0 to 10.
Yeah, do you
And
ever
if you're
go?
at a 10, you're just pretty much comatose. You don't
Or-
feel a thing, or
One's comatose, 10's panic attack, right?
10's a panic attack. And so used to before COVID, number 5 might have been different. But anyway, the whole point was if you're over a 5 all the time, you're just almost, that 6, 7, 8, 9 has now gotten blurred to where you're not doing well. And with COVID, it's just a whole different ball game. So the whole argument you gave of every day you've got to drop below that 5 and get some restoration, right?
Yes.
And get some peace. I feel like this whole thing goes back to that too. Maybe every day you could say, I need to unpack my suitcase or repack my suitcase and get below that 5 and look at all those plates and then give Him some that are special so I can get that restoration and start the next day. ready.
What about if I'm proactive with that? Maybe preemptive. Because I think the worst time to repack your suitcase is when you're in crisis. Basically, you're standing with the flight attendant and your suitcase will not fit in the dimensions for the carry-on luggage, and you're fixing to get a $50 bill for having to check this luggage, right? That's not the best time to be figuring out, I should have gotten Rick Steve's luggage, you know? And so I think in crisis, that's why the rhythm, unforced rhythms of grace, right? Come to me, I'll teach you, I'll show you. Listen to me, come under my mighty hand before you leave for your trip.
Yeah, just daily practices that help you encounter what you have to encounter for that day.
It makes sense if you go to bed so anxious and you're going to wake up anxious. You got to somehow start fresh.
This is a great setup. So this Sunday, we're going to wrap up the series, but we're really going to do some recapping because God has shown us some things, and we need to sit in those things with a new section of Scripture, though, which is exciting. Also, it is communion on Sunday.
Yeah.
Very excited. So in person, at the very conclusion of the service, we'll have this appendix service that'll be a beautiful little communion service in person that is appropriate to the situation, right, with distancing and stuff. Online, we'll have an option for you at the very end of the service. There will be we'll end the service and another button to push on the website.
Yes, there will be a button to push on the website
For just the communion service. Right?
Yeah, it'll be on Vimeo. It's a link that you can go to beforehand. It just won't have anything published until we're actually live. So if at the beginning of service you remember to, okay, I'm going to pull up the church service, but then have this ready to go so that you can make the switch really quick. That might be helpful.
Because we'll kill it here, and then in about a minute or two later, it'll come live there.
It will be a different stream. I think that's important. It won't show up if you leave your service stream going. It won't show up there. You have to go to a different link.
Just the way we need to do this, because the intimate nature of the communion as the body of Christ here at Point of Grace. So
And we're still doing Save the Seat every week.
please.
And there are seats available. So if you think, oh, there's no room, yes, we still have room. So save a seat, and if you're ready to come try in person, give it a try. It's COVID friendly. See what
It
it's
really
like.
is. In
And
person-
if you decide no, then at least you knew you tried. But we have room, and we would love it as you're ready to join us in
Well, I
person.
think too, this activity of coming together and putting the intentionality it takes to either come in person or come online at 11, that intentionality is all part of this yoke of how we deal with the loads of life, for sure. So, okay?
All
right.
We will take Snickers. We will take
Yeah, that's right.
100 grand.
All right. This
popcorn.
seems like appropriate. Could I just say the blessing?
Yes.
Just to wrap us up. So everybody just put your hands out. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord makes his face. This is your Father in heaven. This Lord makes his face to shine upon you. And he is very gracious to you. The Lord, he lifts up his countenance upon you, and he gives you his peace. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.